Hi there, I'm Scott D. Forsyth, professional voice actor and pop culture enthusiast. Today, we are talking about the 2022 multiverse hopping action-packed movie that isn't Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We are talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'll be going over why I think a general audience would enjoy this relatively sleeper hit A24 movie. I'll be talking about how the movie should be the standard of how we tackle the multiverse genre in other media. And of course, I'll be talking about why I think it's best of all. But first, let's take a quick break and get right back to this wacky and wild show. Okay, so if you've been on Twitter, you've probably heard about this movie, but an overall explanation for people who have not heard of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I'll try to be calling Everything Everywhere. It just makes it a little bit quicker, even though I love this wonderfully long title. So this movie is the sophomore film for the director duo known as the Daniels. And their most previous notable work, they've done a lot of different stuff, but together they did a movie called Swiss Army Man, about starring Daniel Radcliffe, Paul Dano, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Daniel Radcliffe plays a corpse. So maybe people have heard that that's the movie where Harry Potter's dead the whole time, which I've never seen, but I've been told I would really like it, which was another movie that was produced by A24. A really popular production company that typically makes movies that are a little bit more artsy. They typically go against the grain of like what mainstream does, and that's why their movies are really interesting. There's been so many. A lot of them typically horror or just like absurdly bizarre. And Everything Everywhere totally fits that. Not the horror aspect, just absolutely bizarre or absurd. So Everything Everywhere All at Once is about a Chinese-American woman struggling to keep her life, her marriage, and business afloat as we follow a stressful but like essential day in her life, like a very important day in her life, as she's getting audited by the IRS for her laundromat company. And so again, like really, really stressful day. And then the multiverse comes into play and it blows up from there. And so it's slightly hard to talk about the story like in earnest, because I think the less you know about the movie, the better. And it's not hard to follow. It's a very, very real story and a very real subject, which I absolutely love. I love it when movies take a really relatable topic or a really like intimate topic and then throw something wild in it. Because like the heart of this movie is about a mother and daughter struggling to find how that they can communicate with each other and essentially love each other. Because they've had a lot of issues. I mean, it's like this day is their breaking point. This could be the day that reunites their relationship, or it could completely shatter it. So, heavy topic, a good amount of drama, but the movie is not all a drama. It's a comedy as well. It's very funny. Again, there's a multiverse that comes to play that gets very wacky, but that also gets really cool. And the plot does an exceptional job of giving the audience everything you need to know, like kind of one beat at a time. There are actually chapters in the movie. And the first chapter, like, is relatively normal, and things get a little bit weirder. It's a slow burn, not in the sense that the pacing's slow, but in the sense that you are getting everything like drip fed to you, so that it's not like a big shock of like, I have no idea what's going on. As it goes on, you're like, oh, okay, like why is this happening? Then they explain it, and you're like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense, and it keeps going, and then maybe that rule breaks, or maybe it changes. It's very, very tactical. It's very intentional. I mean, this plot could easily just be lost on the viewer if they aren't accustomed to the wild ride they're about to have. But the movie does that. And it's, you know, I'm talking very high concept stuff, but trust me that you will like this movie. And one thing that has really stuck out with this movie is its cast. It has a stellar knockout cast with Michelle Yeoh starring as Evelyn, who is a powerhouse actress in her own right. She has a long history of martial arts films, particularly like Hong Kong action films. And her most notable stuff that people would recognize her from right now is probably Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Love that movie. Haven't seen it in a long time, but I really, really liked it. And Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. She plays Shang-Chi's aunt. Aunt. I say both. But yeah, so those are the stuff that you would recognize her from the most. Wikipedia her filmography, because I am positive there's at least like 7 different things that you know her from. Michelle Yeoh is great. She does a great job of playing serious, comedy, and action. And like she is a triple threat in all of those aspects in this movie. And then the male lead of the movie, who is Evelyn's husband, is Hee Kwan. And I apologize if I'm butchering all of these names. I have pronunciation guides in my notes. And he is so delightful. And a lot of you will recognize him because he is from The Goonies and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as Dada and Short Round. One of the biggest stories to come out of this release for the movie was Kwan's return to acting. And for me, I love Michelle Yeoh, and she does a wonderful job in the movie. But Kwan stole the show for me. He plays so well off of her being this very, very endearing partner and really likable personality. I love his voice. I just like it when he's on screen. And again, I said I didn't want to talk about the plot too much, but it does deal with the multiverse. So we get to see kind of different versions of this family. And Hee Kwan plays like such a wonderful, like, any version of him is so enjoyable to watch and listen to, and is really, really endearing. Like, he has a genuine love for his family. And that's like his through line in all of his like versions of himself. And that's what sold his character for me. And of course, his action scenes are fun and engaging, but it's his heart. Oh, he's so, like, for lack of a better words, like adorable. And like really, really, it's really, really heartfelt, like all of his scenes. I mean, the whole movie is heartfelt, but particularly when he's on screen. And the rest of the cast is great. You have James Hong, who is Evelyn's father, who is a very talented voice actor. And you have Stephanie Hsu, who I don't recognize a whole lot of stuff that she's been in. She did some Broadway work, I believe. And she plays Evelyn's daughter. And so that's kind of the main focus of the movie is these 4 actors. And now there are tons of other actors in this movie that really caught me off guard. There's one who's featured in the trailer, but I don't want to spoil who she is. Because I really like to be surprised when like an unexpected actor shows up. I think that's really fun. Like a movie I'll talk about on Best of All sometime soon is John Wick, and I didn't know Willem Dafoe's in that movie, and I was like, whoa, what? There's a few actors who do that in Everything Everywhere, and that's always a fun treat for me because I love reading Wikipedia articles about different actors and especially voice actors. So I want to save those surprises for you too, but like know that this film is stacked with its cast, and there are like everybody will know at least 50% of the cast. It's wild. So obviously, like, I'm very passionate about this movie. It's a ton of fun. It has so many twists and turns. One thing that really surprised me was the practical and special effects were so good. Like, I was genuinely taken aback by some of the stuff, and I thought, like, how on earth did they do that? Because I know that was a practical effect that wasn't CG, and if it was damn good CG. Like, it feels like this classic movie that, like, 20 years from now, people are going to really remember fondly, like we remember movies like The Matrix, which was a big influence for Everything Everywhere. You know, kung fu movies of like Jackie Chan and whatnot. And even Scott Pilgrim, who I know that's a little bit of a divisive movie to talk about. But like the style of Scott Pilgrim is really great, even if the story and the characters aren't all that spectacular. I like Scott Pilgrim. That is not a movie I would recommend to a general audience. But if someone is looking for, like, I know people who go, oh, you got to watch Scott Pilgrim because like just watching it is so much fun and exciting. And I agree. But guess what? Everything Everywhere does that way better. And now I recommend that one to people because I don't recommend Scott Pilgrim versus the World to people, to most people. And, you know, I think it's a great way to grab people's interest of like saying, hey, you like The Matrix, especially the first Matrix? You'll probably like this movie. Hey, you like Scott Pilgrim? Like there's lots of similar elements to that. It's a great way to grab people's interest, especially for a movie that people don't know. Like typically A24 movies, people go like, I don't know what that is. Even though they've gotten so much bigger over the years, with even the past 5 years, like A24 is a huge studio that people know. It is a little bit reductive to just, recommend a movie based off its influences, because in the case with this movie, it's so much more than that. I understand. I'm not slamming people who do that. I do that all the time. But it's like this movie has so much heart because it's like we have a family drama / comedy about like a broken unit, a broken family that's trying to knit itself back together, with Evelyn believing that she is the only one that can do that. And this movie like focuses on like generational guilt and generational divides. And like I said before, like a mother and daughter, like really trying to figure out, like, do they want each other in their life anymore? And it's like, I really appreciate all that. I love those types of stories. Like at its core, have a strong story that will really impact people. It really affected me. And, you know, it may sound like a really heavy subject, but like, I get, oh, sorry if this is spoilers, but like, it does have a very positive ending. And I really like the message that they leave you with, and it makes you feel happy about the characters and make you feel good. It is heartwarming. It is a family film. Not for a younger family, because kids won't understand. They would just like that it's silly and wacky, but like it's truly like watching an animated movie in live action, but without the uncanniness that sometimes that happens. It's very remarkable in how they achieve all of the goofy moments and make it like really genuine. There's like 2 bits of like really wild, which should be like like stuff that shouldn't work in live action, and it does so well, and people who know, and it's really funny. And I love it. A lot of people may assume, Scotty, you love Marvel. You love comic book stuff. And I do to a point, but it's like, oh, so you will like this. You like the multiverse. I remember for years, people would say like, oh, Scott, you're a nerd. You like Doctor Who. And I'm like, I don't like Doctor Who. It's something like that, where someone goes, Scott, you like multiverse stuff. And I go, not really. I've gotten more used to it over the years. But for a long time, I felt that multiverse stories were kind of redundant. And I really thought that they would cheapen significant moments in like the main story. I like when a story is pretty concrete and like just a one continuous narrative. If you have to start jumping around that like, oh, well, this person's from Earth 2 and this one's from Earth X, it's like, I kind of hate that. I think it's really annoying. And it can easily be done so badly in some examples of being like a character dies and it's this really like harsh and sad moment. And then like next season, I'm mostly talking about The Flash and Arrow, which is why I stopped watching those shows. But like next season, they're like, oh, and hey, look, we got another version of Tom Bergeron. I don't know why I said Tom Bergeron, but it's like, no, I like that character's arc's ended in like a very sad and like sacrificial way. I don't want them to come back in just some random like different version so that we could do it all over again. That's annoying. Or then if a character like didn't die and went through a complete like extensive transformation and it's like, okay, this character arc is done. They've concluded their story in a really satisfying way, But we got another, we got Earth 3 version of Tommy, and ooh, he's super silly, and he's just like the mean bad guy that you saw in season 1, but now we have to deal with him again. Like, that's so annoying. Because it's like, we're just seeing the same thing over and over again. It feels very cheap. That was, for my case, that was what like the multiverse was for a long time. And then it evolved into a kind of a more cynical look, like in Rick and Morty, which is a show I relatively enjoy. I don't typically say that all that often to people because Rick and Morty fans can be very toxic. And in that show, it deals with the multiverse, but the theme of that show is like nihilism and nothing matters and like everything is pointless, so we might as well just like embrace the chaos. And that like bums me out. That's really upsetting. Like, I like certain episodes of Rick and Morty. I do find it funny. But like, I really get sick of being told over and over that like nothing matters. You don't matter. We live in a simulation, like blah, 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 like all that stuff. Like, I hate that. And so I'm happy to say that Everything Everywhere addresses all of my complaints. And it takes those themes, both of them that I saw, where it's like you have different versions of one character. You have a character who straight up, like, when I realized that I was just one of an infinite number of versions of me, like, I felt like I don't matter. And they didn't see the beauty in individualism. And they were very nihilistic. And that character is like, I don't know what makes me unique. And it makes a whole lot of sense, and it totally fits within the narrative of the story and the overall arching world of the multiverse. And then you have characters who are like, I don't care if there's other versions of me. I am me. Like, that's all I care about. This movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, tackles both of those themes really well in a way that makes sense and really shows why those two thoughts are valid. Then it shows kind of the beauty in like self-identifying and individuality and making yourself unique, despite the fact that there could be tons of other versions of you, but you're still you. It's really, really smart. And no, not everything needs to be positive. I like movies that have somber endings. And like I said, yeah, this movie does have a positive ending. And I really, really liked having both sides, my complaints and my slight enjoyment of the multiverse, discussed in one movie. This movie is like fresh and unique and fun. It feels almost like magical. Maybe not magical, but like whimsical. I've seen a few movies in the theater since quarantine. But like this was one that really, really made me enjoy going into the theater again. So yeah, at the time of recording, you can still see Everything Everywhere All at Once in theaters. That will probably not be the case if you listen to this later on. Because even when I started to go see it, it was already like kind of rounding out its course in theaters. But you can catch it when it arrives on digital and DVD. I highly recommend that you do. It looks like the digital release will be around sometime in May. And then the physical release will be sometime around in June. That's kind of like what I've looked up, but I don't necessarily trust those sources. So good luck with that. But when it comes out and you're seeing some of these commercials for the DVD release, you got to check it out. Hopefully you've taken something out of this episode and will give Everything Everywhere All at Once a shot. But best of all, you were a listener. And we at ScottyMeLad thank you. And that's my closer. Best of All was hosted and produced by Scott D. Forsythe, using the song Mia by Rolando Puchades from the album Canta as our intro and outro theme.